So welcome everybody to this evening's Illuminate class. Tonight we are talking about the uprising, which is something very, very close and dear to my heart. I want us to think about this little saying first of all, which is, rebels question the way things have to be. They dare to dream of a healthier world based on love rather than fear, where you live your dreams, you manifest your heartfelt visions and live a nourishing life rather than in suffering. Rebels refuse to be put down by those frightened to be truly alive. So what's going on? What is going on? Okay, so we are in the midst, or rather we are right at the very start of what is a universal revolution. We are experiencing a deep shift on all levels. This is inner and outer. So what we're seeing around us at the moment is the start of what is known as the dark night of the soul. We are seeing all of the pain, all of the imbalances coming to the surface. We're looking at systems in our society that aren't working, they don't serve us, they don't serve the people in this community and in this society, and they're coming to the surface to be recognized as being imbalanced. We're seeing the systems that are harmful to us and to the earth. So if you've seen the stuff about the cows and how they are they're taking up arable land that we could be using for ourselves. We're talking about the Black Lives Matter, we're talking about the Me Too movement, we're talking about any type of system that's in place, anything that is not serving the people as a collective, as a whole. And we can't navigate all of these changes and shifts with our mental energy. And we've really tried, but it doesn't work. So instead, we have to use something different. And that's our feminine energy. And it doesn't matter whether you're masculine or feminine. Each of us have both the masculine and feminine energies inside of us. And what we're being asked to do now is come into the surrender and to the flow. So this is coming out of the mental, masculine, the pushing energy into the feminine flow energy. And it's time to take back our personal power. We have been victimized, we have been bullied, not just us, but every single member of society. We have had our power taken away from us, and we have let that happen. And it's now got to a point where it's no more. We're not going to let that happen any longer. It's time for us to rise up, truly recognize who we are, and awaken our soul signature. That is our unique divine blueprint that each of us has, and the entire reason that we have incarnated at this time. And we are going to be here to help us ignite that and remember who we truly are. So how did we get here? So there's a long history of victimization, marginalization, manipulation, and blocked hearts. And blocked hearts means that there's no feeling, there's no empathy. And we call that the masculine distortion. So in each one of us, there's the masculine and there's the feminine. And in proper alignment, those two come together in a union. But unfortunately, for a very, very long time, we've lived in a distorted masculine society where there is no empathy, there is no care, there's no nourishment, there's no flow, there's no allowing. It's very controlled, it's very pushing, and it's very domineering. And you could argue that this is an anti-human, anti-female programming. So it's not just about female, it's about all of us. It's anti-life, and it's being reinforced by those who profit from it. And for women specifically, we are dealing with a long history of misogynized experiences, victimization, sexual assault, abuse impacting the collective and the individual psyche at deep levels. So this isn't just about us, although it is about us, it's about our collective experience as well. So what happens within us also happens within everybody else too. And unfortunately, with this masculine distortion, we have these really strong personalities and characters who tell us what to do, how to do it. And being an empath or highly sensitive, or just the conditioning we have in society, we have something called learned helplessness, and we have abandoned ourselves. That's the idea, is that thinking that somebody else knows what's best for us than we do, especially narcissists who really truly have only room for themselves, even if they tell you otherwise. And for those highly sensitive people among us and the empaths, society, you will probably feel like you've always been the outcast, the person who doesn't fit in, we don't belong. Society currently isn't made for those who have feelings. And what we are doing is taking our power back. We are taking back this belief that our feelings are our superpowers. And we're creating a new paradigm. We're shifting into something completely different and whole and feeling and caring and nurturing. And it starts with us. So that's what tonight is about. How do we take back our power, our control, and help create this important change that is so needed within ourselves and within our society as well? So how do these distortions show up in our reality? So just some examples, it really is an exhaustive list, but some examples include the diet industry, which is basically you are only lovable if you're thin, and there's a lot of shaming involved and a lot of marginalization. Then there's narcissism, praising and remunerating the alpha males. Equal pay, men are better than women and therefore get paid more. In magazines, for example, being yourself, on one hand they say be yourself, in another page you turn it over, be yourself, but actually you look better if you lose weight, look like this. So there's really deep confusing messages within one magazine, one way of we take in all of this information. And even down to parenting, the constant undermining of being a parent and that parent-child bond, the quiet out movement, the putting the kid in the corner movement, not that, you know, it's up to you what you do with your child, but I just want to encourage you to see that a lot of these are creating wedges between our relationship, our heart connection with our children, and creating a separation. And what we want to do is bring us back together and really deepen that bond that we have with our children. And then the distorted news, which has especially at the moment all about fear and doubt, and that's what they deal with. That's their money, that's what they get remunerated in, that's what sells magazines and newspapers and content. So that's just a few examples, and I'm going to really encourage you to delve deeply into your reality, see where these distortions show up and question them, and see how you contribute to those and what you can do to empower yourself to create change as well. So if we're not the distorted masculine, if we're not powerless, if we're not misogynized, if we're not victims, what are we? Well, we are the cosmic mother. We are, at our very core, we are deeply loving, strong, powerful, sensitive, and a heart-based race. That's it. That is, I mean, it's not just it, that is everything. We are all like that, but we're born into this experience and we forget that this is who we truly are. And the strength of a mother, and you don't have to be a mother to feel this, but if you are, you'll understand a little bit more on a different level what I mean. The strength of a mother is unlike any other. It softens and opens our hearts. And also we are naturally, as we're supposed to be, we are in sync with the rhythms of cosmic Mother Earth, and the natural flow of life, winter, spring, summer, autumn, the growing of the vegetables, the rhythms of the moon and the sun, the earth and its rotation, how we have the energy and then we lose it. And, you know, just the way that we're supposed to be in sync with our nature, with our environment. That's who we are really. and the distorted masculine takes it away. They say we need to be completely the same in terms of productivity the year round. They control how our cycles are supposed to look, how we relate to our bodies, how we relate to each other and the environment and the seasons. And somebody's got in between that relationship, that we have that deep bond and connection that we have with something else that is greater than us. And they've stopped that bond, and now we're taking that back. Now we're reconnecting ourselves to something much greater. Why are we going through this? Well, we have many of us, all of us have many karmic imbalances. That is stuff that we've brought with us from lifetimes before that we need to work through. We need to outsmart our old destructive patterns so that we create something completely different. We're starting again, this is like a blank slate. We're going from the distorted masculine into the cosmic and divine feminine. All that means is we're coming back to the heart. We're going from this rigid thinking of the head, and we're coming and bringing it back into the soft, nurturing, but strong and powerful feminine of the heart. And we want to be of service to others. Every single one of us on this call, we know that we have so much to give, we have so much to offer, and we want to be out there helping each other grow and develop through life's changes in whatever unique and beautiful way we want to express that. We want to be an expression of love, kindness, and compassion in form. We want to shine the light on our inner darkness, because if we shine the light, then the darkness loses its power. That's the whole reason we worked on the inner child masterclass in June, because we want to let ourselves know that this is all about healing, and the darkness has so much less power when we shine the light on it. And we come home within ourselves. And if you're like me, you will have spent so many years feeling like home is not home. Our bodies are not somewhere safe to be. So we always look outside of ourselves to find alternative ways of being able to numb our feelings, numb our emotions, or just escape ourselves completely. But now we're coming back to this feeling of safety within us and knowing that we are home. And one of the most important things for especially highly sensitives and empaths, but mainly everybody has this, is to heal this victim role, this archetype, this feeling of less than within us. Please don't feel shame or embarrassment or anything that spirals you downwards when you think of yourself as having this victim archetype. It is there, it's there to be witnessed and looked at and worked on, and that's okay. We just want to bring awareness to it first. And recognize your feelings are your teacher. That's the whole way through all of this into healing, is to allow those feelings to come up, allow them to be witnessed and to look at, so that we can help them transform into something else and allow them on their way. And spread and live our heart's signature and purpose. Again, the whole reason, ultimately, why we're here, to help everything transform and ascend and become something altogether much greater than just us in our individualness. So what does it start with? Well, it starts with the first thing, recognizing and remembering our self-worth. So bye-bye victimhood. And the reason we do that is because self-worth is at the core of all of this transformation. It's like a power that's within us, that's blocked off when we think of ourselves as a less than, that when we start to recognize our worth again, it fuels so much creativity, change, and transformation. And number 2 is creating strong, healthy boundaries. And number 3 is connecting to your inner messages. So we're going to go through each of those now. So self-esteem. Targeting self-esteem makes us stay small and feel helpless. So you'll see a lot of the messages in society with this distorted masculine has been to keep ourselves small. And the primary factor in establishing a person's feeling of success and transformation is self-esteem. So you can see another reason why it's really important that we work on our value, this feeling of value that we have for ourselves. And once we feel love for ourselves, we build inner confidence, and therefore we start to trust life. The more we start to trust ourselves, the more we start to trust the natural rhythms, the communications, the interactions we have, not only with our society, but also with something greater than ourselves. And on a manifestation level, when you're trying to manifest your life, when you're trying to bring things into your life, low self-worth attracts intense experiences over and over again until we heal the pattern, whether that's from relationships or jobs or anything like that at all. Whatever you're trying to do, life will keep bringing you situations and information so that you can really help yourself work on your self-esteem, so that you can use your self-worth and bring your power, bring your purpose, bring your manifestation of ideas into this world. There's a lot more work around this self-esteem feeling and how to do it in the workbook. But briefly, building self-esteem, according to Nathan Brandon's framework, the 6 pillars of generating and building self-esteem, there are 6 aspects of them. Okay, so the first one is living consciously, which is the practice of being aware of what one is doing whilst they're doing it, so being mindful. Number 2 is self-acceptance, the practice of owning truths regarding your thoughts, your emotions and behaviors, and being kind towards yourself. So the taking really the back ownership and taking back the control, and this is what we talked about in the inner child masterclass, really taking back control of your thoughts and knowing that you are at the core of your thoughts and your behaviors and your emotions. It just takes practice. Self-responsibility, which is the practice of owning your authorship of your actions and owning your capacity to be the cause and effect of your desires, which basically means you are in control of what you want to do and how you do it. And self-assertiveness, the practice of treating your needs and interests with deep respect and expressing them in really appropriate ways. And even before then, coming back into understanding what your needs are, what is it that you need, and identifying that, so that then when you go into the world, you can express your needs and create healthy boundaries around them. Number 5 is living purposefully, which is the practice of formulating your goals and formulating and implementing your action plans to achieve them. So have a goal and then putting steps in place to achieve your goal. So maybe you're not sure what a goal, one of your goals would be, and that would be a place where I would start for you. But again, this is covered in the workbook, so do check that out. And number 6 is personal integrity, which is the practice of maintaining alignment between your behaviors and your convictions. So basically, do as you say. So self-esteem blockers, self-sabotage. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Doing something you realize after that you didn't want to. Self-doubt, doubting that you can do it or do anything. Self-judgment, which is when your inner dialogue speaks badly to you, keeping you small. Victimhood, feeling like it's all your fault, feeling sorry for yourself. Martyrdom, which is withholding joy and love from your life because you feel you should be putting other people first and then resenting them for it. And then self-deprecation, constantly putting yourself down, not accepting compliments and not celebrating yourself. And I think it's really important just to pause here for a moment and recognize that I have done every single one of those. And I know that the moment, even if it comes down to the very simple fact of if somebody gives you a compliment, instead of going, no, 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 you say thank you. Just a simple thank you. You don't even have to agree with it. I just want you to practice saying thank you, receiving something, receiving good things coming towards you. And just by having the awareness of these blockers, you will start to then be able to do something about them, especially using the tools from the Inner Child Masterclass and through the workbook information. So, whoops. The calm in the storm. To find the answer is like water. When the water is agitated, the answer is hard to see. When the water is calm, the answer is clear. And that's the whole reason we're doing all of this. I know I keep saying that there's many reasons, in fact, that we're doing all of this work and diving deeply into these experiences. But the idea is to be the calm in the storm. There's a storm happening around us majorly at the moment. And we want to be our calm in the storm. And we do that by working with our feelings, working with our triggers, working with these blockers, and helping calm the inner storm that we have. So, next stage, why boundaries? Well, when we have self-esteem, we can then start to look at boundaries, and guaranteed every single person on this call or joining this masterclass has had issue with boundaries on some level, whether it's not now or whether it's been with a parent when you were a child or some level of experience. And we create coping strategies to be able to deal with that. And they often don't work very well. So often we have to come back to ground zero and work out, okay, what is a boundary and how do I put that in that is going to help me personally live in a way that feels good to me, not blocking people out, allowing people in, but also saying yes and no to what I want. So letting in. Boundaries are about letting in what you want and keeping out what you don't. They're about connecting to our values and being their guardian. So if you're not at the very core, boundaries are about values. What do you stand for? If you're not sure what you stand for, then you're not going to be able to be the guardian of your boundaries. Okay, so we're going to get really, really clear in the workbook about what our values are. And if you're sure about that, then great. Then you can go on to working with implementing those. But if you're not sure, then start off with working on what are your boundaries. And I've put in a really good exercise on how to work those out for you. Then there are others. We often believe that when it comes to boundaries, that it's the other people that are the issue. We constantly believe that they're the issue, or they're the ones at fault, or we are the ones at fault. And it's really disempowering to think that we are not at the cause or at the, we have the ability to be able to work on our own boundaries. They belong to us. We can't expect anybody else to look after our boundaries for us or respect them if we don't know what they are and we're not reinforcing them. Again, this is not about creating a big block all around us. This is about letting in what you want, but keeping out what you don't want. Self-abandonment is about losing my sense of self, which leads to codependency, which is this idea of you are more important than me. And that really rings true when you're working with a lack of values, who am I? If somebody comes along, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but if somebody comes along who's really a dominating personality or a parent, and they have that dominating role within your life, and they say to you, I know you better than you know yourself. Well, if your self-worth isn't quite spot on, or you're not sure what your values are, you're likely to turn to them and go, oh, they're really sure in themselves. That's really an attractive quality because I don't have that. And so I'm going to listen to what they say and take it on, even if it's destructive to me. But we don't want that anymore. We want to take our power back. We want to know that what our values are and what our boundaries are and what our feelings are, and be the guardian of these like they are the most precious things to us. Other people's pain, being aware of other people's pain, but not taking it on as your own. It is their stuff. Recognize that we are sovereign beings. We are powerful beings within our right, and we don't have to take on other people's pain. It has nothing to do with us. And in fact, it's disempowering for them if we feel that we have to take on their problems. Whereas we can listen, we can guide, we can offer suggestions, but at the end of the day, that boundary becomes tight and you say, now it's up to you to work on your stuff. Obviously, that's different with children, but you still want to encourage critical thinking with children, help them to come up with their own solutions, help them to come up with their own ways of interacting with the world, and trial and error. You don't want to be that person who then is codependent and say, you can't live without me because I have all the answers. We need to break these codependent patterns and become autonomous and really self-sovereign. And another reason why we struggle with boundaries is this idea of conflict avoidance. Like, I don't want to make them unhappy. I don't want to cause any problems. But actually, I bet you'll find that if you haven't put in boundaries, that creates more problems long term. So Brené Brown talks about having 30 seconds or maybe 3 minutes of discomfort by saying no to something, rather than 3 months of feeling resentment and pain towards somebody else because you said yes when you wanted to say no, or vice versa. So we need to find courage to say yes or no in that moment, or you can say, let me think about it. Let me pause. I'm just going to go away and have some time out, think about it and see what I feel about it, and then get back to you. So we need to find this courage, this power, this courage over comfort. And then empowerment over guilt. Guilt is such a tricky feeling, especially when we're putting in boundaries, because we feel like we're being mean. But the only person we're being mean to is ourselves. By being mean, we're being inwardly violent to us and not them. They need to take responsibility for their behaviors. We need to take responsibility for ours, and know that when you are giving something freely, you, from a place of healthy boundaries, it is much more powerful than it ever would have been had it been from a place of resentment and a place of conflict avoidance. So what do unhealthy boundaries look like? There's a list. Like, this is by no means an exhaustive list. I'm sure you could come up with more. But for example, feeling guilty when you say no, saying yes when you mean no, saying no when you mean yes, not saying something when you have something to say. That, especially with the throat chakra, that fifth chakra energy, can get very stuck. It feels like something's stuck in your throat. Having sex when you don't want to, doing too much because you feel the need to be perfect, not communicating your needs in a relationship or friendship, being overly involved in somebody else's emotional drama, and people pleasing. Crikey, maybe people pleasing should be at the start rather than the end. But yes, I was even talking to my son this morning about him not wanting to be upset anybody because he wants to make sure that they're happy. And I said, do you feel happy because you made somebody else happy? He said, no. I said, why is that? He said, because I didn't make me happy first. I said, yeah. So if we could all learn that at the age of 7, that would have been good. But here we are, learning it now, and that is empowerment. Whose feelings? Oh, this is a good one. Often empaths take on other people's thoughts and emotions and mistakenly think that they're our own. And that is, if for no other reason, one of the most important reasons why we need boundaries. So, because we don't want other people's feelings, we need to focus on our own. And if it's all mixed up, how do you know what to deal with? How do you know who it is? We are sovereign beings. This is our energy field. This belongs to us. And we need to take back ownership of ourselves. So before you start to question whether or not this feeling belongs to somebody else, check in with yourself. Ask yourself these 3 questions. Is this thought mine? Is this feeling mine? And where is this coming from? Now, if you haven't practiced this kind of questioning before when you're dealing with feelings, it might be confusing at first, and it might not be something that you're very easily able to identify where it's coming from. So my tip is to take yourself out of the situation and pause to assess, especially if you're in a group and a crowd, or at work or anything like that. Take yourself away. Even if you can cleanse your energy in any way, get outside into nature, and you'll be able to see that it's a lot easier to tell whose emotion was whose. And if you're triggered, same thing. Work your tools, work your triggering tools, come back down into that calm and peaceful energy before you really try to work through all of these really intense feelings and emotions that you may be experiencing. The good old perfectionist virus. So as if you've been part of the Inner Child Work Masterclass, you'll know that there are such things as thought viruses. And one of them is called the perfectionist virus. And these thought viruses are things that we think that we take on as our own, but actually don't belong to us. But they're things that we have been living with and feeling with for so many years that they feel like they belong to us, but they don't. It's a lie. That's why they're called a virus, because they come into our bodies, they take over, and then we start to identify with them. So the perfectionist virus is one of the most difficult viruses to get rid of, and it takes a load of patience and a load of compassion and time. So be kind to yourself and spot it. You got it. Just allow it to come up, and you go, oh, not again. That happened again, but it's okay. So what it looks like is, it means we enter into situations and make ourselves feel like we should be okay, even if we're not. Also, if we are not perfect, we feel unlovable and worthless. So like I was just saying, the only antidote to that is, first of all, to become aware of it, and then deep, radical compassion towards ourselves, because this is one of the most inwardly violent thoughts that we can have. And remember, or even start to understand, that you are doing the best that you can. And it's not a negative thought. This is an empowering thought. You are doing your absolute best, and your best is enough. Compassion keeps us out of resentment and keeps us out of martyrdom, which are both downward spiraling thought forms, and we want to be going upwards. You must honor your values, your boundaries, and your feelings. And the moment you start to do that, even just a little bit, you start to really trust yourself. You trust that you can manage situations. You have your own back. Okay, that is something that many of us don't feel like we've had. We have this kind of inward feeling, this kind of core that feels out of alignment, and we want to bring it back in and feel this solidity within us, feeling nice and strong. And I want you to repeat on a daily basis, I am doing the best that I can, and let it turn from feelings like it's not something positive into that I am doing the best that I can, and say it with conviction, and you will start to see that and feel the power in those words. And we want to learn how to say no without guilt. So many of us struggle to say no to other people, especially if they are put on the spot, or if they think that the person will react badly to a refusal. Part of this is we want to help others. Part of this is a lack of self-worth, and part of this is a fear of rejection. Ultimately, this is a form of behavior that leads to resentment and disempowerment. So we need to practice saying no. So practice instead, like I mentioned earlier, saying things like, I'll let you know shortly. Let me get back to you. And if you notice any I shoulds or I ought tos or anything like that come up for you, then that should be an automatic no. There shouldn't be. Try not to go into a situation where you feel like you need to or should be doing something, because that's a push. That's part of the distorted masculine energy, and we don't want to be going there anymore. We want to see what resonates, see what feels good for us, and allow that to be our experience, and follow that like the most perfect breadcrumbs. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So how do we know when our boundaries have been violated? Well, it all comes down to the feeling in your body. And if we have spent all of our lives up here in our heads, to connect back to your body, especially for those of us who are highly sensitive, our bodies can feel like They violate us sometimes. They let other people know information that we're not ready to let them know about, or we feel everything and it can feel too much. And that's why many of us cope with numbing mechanisms like alcohol or excess food or smoking, drinking, that kind of stuff. So just so we don't have to feel the intensity of our feelings. But I want to encourage you to start to really make peace with your body slowly and listen to its messages. Allow these feelings and thoughts to arise, because they are the inner messages that are really bringing you home. So the feelings in your body are things like your jaw tightens, your shoulders become tense, maybe your thoughts feel confused and intense, and they feel like they're going like you have brain fog. You feel angry and scared, feeling guilt, shame, anxiety, maybe even becoming emotionally unavailable, which means to withdraw, come back into yourself, become, maybe somebody said to you, you're aloof. It's a sign that you're struggling with the boundary violation. So each of us will have different ways that our bodies show us how our boundaries are being violated. It might be even that you react in a really aggressive, angry, sort of a pushing away experience. That's something that happens too. Again, we are all unique. We really want to find a way to connect back to our inner messages and learn how our bodies are communicating with us. No judgment, just allow it to communicate. So how do we create boundaries? First and foremost, building self-esteem and self-worth. If you don't feel like you are worthy of being protected and being the guardian of yourself, then you're not going to do it. So start with your working on as much as you. There is so much information out there. There's to help us create self-love, self-worth, self-esteem now. The workbook starts it. It's a really good fundamental place to start, but I encourage you to really explore and see what other books come your way, videos, people. I like to call them expanders. So people come into your life and they expand you. And you'll find that the moment you set the intention to grow, the universe will give you what you need. You just have to be open to it. So also identifying values, so we know what we stand for. Work out your core wounding, so that your core wounding is what will stop you creating your boundaries, because these are mechanisms put in place that are codependent often, and that means that we don't stand for what we are because we need to be attached or be with somebody. So and untangling that is tricky. And not always very graceful, but that's okay. That's part of the process too. And what we need to do is create new neural pathways with affirmations. And there's some beautiful affirmations in the workbook. And like I said just now, the expanders, role models. Surround yourself with people who are role modeling this experience, these emotions, these behaviors. I don't mean narcissists. So really work on your narcissist DAR, your radar of narcissism, because they're not role modeling healthy behavior. They are just grandiose. That's not the same thing. But with time and with practice, you'll be able to spot which one is good and which one isn't good for you. And sort of it's almost like an imprint. You're starting to see that behavior is good and that behavior is not so great, and work on what works for you. And then practice energetic boundary shielding and cleansing. And I'll go on to that in a second. So we are both emotional and spiritual. So I really wanted to focus on this as well this evening, because it's important to understand that whilst our physical bodies are important and we get a lot of our messages in that way, we are also 3 feet in every direction. This is our aura, or light body, or however you want to call it, if you've got your own terminology. And you know, if somebody comes into your space and it feels too close, you kind of lean back, you ask them to leave, or if you haven't got very strong boundaries, you kind of just try and get away or make an excuse. And that 3 feet in every direction, that needs to be protected, because when we experience trauma, pain, or anything like that, it creates holes in our aura, holes in our light body, and we need to be protecting that, because those are areas of weakness and vulnerability. So create a daily energetic shield, and that's what the meditation that's attached to this workshop is designed to help you with, is to create a really strong energy boundary. So you can use this when you're speaking to a parent who's maybe domineering and you need some shielding. Do it every single night before you go to sleep. Do it in your bed, do it around your room, do it around yourself, do it around your children. You want to be really working with creating the sovereignty, the authenticity of your own space, and recognizing that that belongs to you. So that's also part of creating that inner power. And with practice, you'll notice what belongs to you and what doesn't. So within this 3 feet in every direction, that's known as your energy field. And there might be things, if you're sensitive to it, there might be things that want to come in, and things that want to be part of your energy field, or even may even want to be part of you. That's a no. Absolutely nothing is allowed inside of your field. That is yours and yours alone. Do whatever you need to do with this boundary setting on a daily basis to not allow things in. Okay. So when we're learning about boundaries, especially when we're learning to communicate our needs and say no, we need to learn how to protect ourselves. And the ways that we do that is through meditation and shielding and essential oils. Now I've highlighted that because I sent each of you a little sample. And if you're watching this on a replay for the masterclass, then the sample that I sent out was melaleuca, yarrow pom, and frankincense. And you don't need much. I've put mine into a little pot here. And all you need to do, if you want to grab yours now, is just put a little bit on your finger, and at the top of the crown of the head, put your finger and place it on the crown chakra. And what this is doing is reinforcing this shield, this field, this light, your light body. And you can work with the consciousness of these oils and ask them to reinforce them. So yarrow pom, frankincense, and melaleuca are all designed for energy protection and to help you feel strong. Okay. So other ways of working with your energy protection, running water, go into the sea, go into the shower, meditate in your bath. The water amplifies any sort of intention or meditation, and it was massively cleansing. Singing, loads of singing, sing as much as you want, and that will really help shift and move out that energy too. Remove yourself and set time limits before you go in. So if you've got family or friends that you know, unfortunately, you have to see, make a time limit. Say, okay, I need to stay here for this amount of time, and then I need to leave. Nature, get out into nature, connect to her, be just in the trees or wherever you feel the most comfortable and the most refreshed. Whether it's, do you feel called to the sea, do you feel called to the trees, do you feel called to your garden, whatever feels the most benefiting for you. And then the breath, the breathing, using your breath. And I like the 5-5-5 breath. So I've put a little box there. So you breathe in for 5, hold for 5, breathe out for 5, hold for 5. Okay, so you just keep going round and round and round. And it's really subtle, so you can do that on your way to work in the car, you can do it in the office, anytime you're feeling anxious, you can do it in the shopping queue. Whenever you just need to calm down, bring yourself back into your body, this 5-5-5 breath is really powerful. And I could write a whole book about narcissists, and especially over the last month or so, they have really come into my awareness to be looked at more deeply. But they do deserve their own slide. Narcissists are everywhere. And it's important to understand their role, the role that they have with the victim-victimizer programming and that empath-narcissist attraction. I want you to know that you can be free. And as of now, as of this really incredible experience that we're going through now, we have this opportunity to be free of this victim role. That means we no longer need to be attached to these narcissists, but we need to untangle ourselves. We need to work on our self-worth, our self-esteem. We need to work on our boundaries, and they are going to kick up a fuss. They're not going to like it, but tough. They've had their time. It's our time now. And we're here to grow. We're here to rise up. We're here to take back our power. And they're here to help us learn about creating strong, healthy boundaries, very strong, healthy boundaries. And what I want you to remember is it's not personal. Their behavior towards you is not personal. It's all about them. The moment you take it personally, they win. They take back your power. You give it away. It's theirs. It's gone. It's not personal. Be kind to yourself. And we'll talk about that more in the coming months. But be kind to yourself. Live a life you love and with meaning. A narcissist loves nothing more than a lost person. They think they can be your guidance, your shining light, your point of contact. It's not true. Find your own, you know your own, and we'll talk about how to find that in a moment, but find your own purpose, your own navigation, your own north, and cultivate a very strong sense of self. Who are you? Do you know? Have you spent time really deeply delving into the beauty that is you, the strength, the power that is you? Because now's your time to do that. If you really want to break those bonds that you've got with that narcissist or narcissists in your life, you need to really, truly work out who you are away from the thought viruses. They are not true. They are not true. Your thought viruses, the things that keep you small, are not true. So who are you if you're not that? And shrug it off if you can. If it hasn't triggered you, if it has, great, work with it. But if it hasn't triggered you, great. That's just them. You don't need to be a part of it. And if they are part of your life and you can't get rid of them, then learn to recognize that it's not personal. It's not your stuff. It's not yours. It's theirs. And the moment you do that, you create distance. And that's what you need. And I love this idea that this is part of our dark arts training. All of us who are working with the light, who are working with creating a new paradigm of living in, who are reclaiming our power and authority, we have to work with some really deep, heavy, intense energy, people, situations that come up to challenge us. And we think sometimes, God, is this never ending? And it feels relentless. So maybe some of us are working with deep, really hard physical ailments, emotional ailments, or both at the same time. My heart goes out to you. I understand and I know what that feels like. But this is part of our dark arts training. How do we help transmute this negative, this intense darkness into something lighter? How do we let this go and transform it into something that is empowering and strong for us, rather than always feeling like a why me now? So this whole energy that we're going from is this push, this distorted masculine. Let's keep going, push, 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 push. I don't care what my deadline is. I need to get it. Let's work to deadlines. Let's create, let's move, let's go, let's go, let's go. Whereas the flow now, that's what we're really starting to embody, is this cosmic mother. That's what it's called, the cosmic mother energy, which is naturally up and down. It goes in flows, and it might feel really uncomfortable to start to live in that flow. It might feel like the distorted masculine is going, why have you stopped? What are you doing? You're taking a day off? What is that? How could you? You're not going to achieve. You're not going to do. You're not going to be if you don't get on with it. But the cosmic mother is softer. She knows where she's going. She knows what she's about. She knows that there's a natural and really intelligent flow to life, something greater than the distorted masculine could ever have imagined or experienced, something intelligent beyond our comprehension. And the divine, the cosmic mother, wants us to be part of that. And she knows that there's timing. Timing is everything. Trusting the timing, and that things come into your life and leave your life just exactly where they are. You don't need to get that ego involved, that inner child who's throwing a tantrum. Just gently love it out of the way, give it a cuddle, put it to bed, and recognize that this is learning how to live in this flow. So how else do we start to really connect to our purpose and this cosmic mother, this flow? Well, we start to get divine messages. These are the messages that we're never going to get access to when we're in this distorted masculine, because the distorted masculine is all about the ego. It's all about me. What can I get? How can I do? How can I be? Where am I going? Whereas the divine, the cosmic mother is all about working with the energies, working with our universe, working with our society, working with our friends. And inside of us are these messages that come to us, and they bring us our true purpose, and they help us connect to ourselves. So we're working with this deeply intelligent system versus this rigid logic thinking. And these messages come to us in terms of pings and in terms of whether it resonates or not. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The thing that works against us is this really big lie that feelings and honoring our feelings is selfish. And that's one of those barriers that comes between us and these messages, is this feeling that it's selfish or we're being selfish. But you know what? If you stop ignoring, if you keep ignoring these messages, all it does is create inner and outer conflict. These messages want us to know that we're not alone in this experience. We're not doing this journey on our own. We are here with the greater aspect of ourselves and this universe and the cosmic mother and all of the other energies and beings that are part of this experience. And they want us to know that we're not alone, and they want to help us on our journey. But if they can't get messages to us, then we feel isolated and alone, which is also part of this victim mentality, to feel like I'm isolated and alone. So where do these messages come from? Well, they come from either your higher self, your soul, the universe, or a mixture of all of them. Your higher self is basically the enlightened version of you, which you are always connected to by this beautiful gold thread coming out of the crown of your head all the way up into the center of the universe. And these messages come down and they come into your light body, and that's when you can start to feel things, or you get visions or images or sensations. It's unique to you, so you will start to learn how these messages come into you. And then they can come into your body too, so it can be a feeling from your heart center, which is a yes feels like an open, and a no feels like a really tight close. But we can't get those messages, and that's what that zigzag next to the mental noise and trauma. We can't get those messages if there's too much mental noise and trauma going on. So we need to really work on this inner child healing to work on these, bringing in these messages. So how do these messages show up? Well, they show up in the subtle, which is a resonating. So you will be here on this masterclass because on some level, somehow this tonight resonated with you. And so you followed it like a breadcrumb. When it resonates with you, you feel it in your body. It's like a sign, a little breadcrumb, and it will lead you to the right place at the right time. And a very simple thing to question to pose is, does this resonate with me? Yes or no? And honor that message, that reply deeply with every fiber of your being. Make sure that you honor it, because I guarantee each one of us have got an example when you went along and didn't follow your resonating feeling and ended up with something that didn't work out so well. And a ping. So resonating and ping is different. A ping is an immediate, strong either feeling or a message that comes in from your universe or your higher self, the guardians. Feels a bit like a download. Maybe you're like, oh, where did that feeling or thought come in? Mine often come in songs. So in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning, I'll start humming a song, and there'll be certain lyric or phrases that really reflect where I'm at that moment. And it's like a little message. Other people get psychic visions. Other people just get a sensation, or even just something shows up in your 3D environment. And it's like you must go and have a look at this. Something feels like you need to follow it. Go somewhere, do something. Both experiences require cultivation of trust with the universe and with yourself. So just keep practicing. It's going to be wonky. It's going to be, again, not very graceful as you start, but just keep practicing and you will get there. What stops us connecting? Well, fear and doubt are two big ones. Doubting that you can actually connect. Any sort of fear is like a complete block off. Uncleared pain, which is your inner child. Mental noise like trauma, suffering, abuse, giving your power away so that other people can decide for us. You're never going to get a message if other people are making your decisions for you. Resentment, because forgiveness at its core releases bonds and cording. But if you're holding on to resentment, you won't be able to get those messages. Holding on to hard emotional challenges like anger and resentment. Lack of discernment, which is like careless decision on lower impulses. Feeling lost, unhappy about current life conditions and not feeling very meaningful. And not honoring your wants and needs, because if you're not honoring those, then you're not going to get messages, because there's no reason to give you a message, because you're not going towards something. You're not trying to get somewhere or do something or help someone, or do you see what I mean? So you want to be really focusing on your wants and needs so you can work with the breadcrumbs. Practice every day. Learn how to control and understand your emotions. Work on healing your shadow and inner child. Pay attention over and over to your pings, and you will be unbelievably surprised with what happens and where it leads you. Practice stillness, connecting to the calm and the flow. And most importantly, the pings and the resonating happen in the present moment. So if you're anxiously thinking about the past, the future or the past, you won't get those messages. They happen right now in this moment, right here. A little note on self-sabotage. When we're trying to create these new feelings and emotions and thoughts and in life experiences, we will self-sabotage. It is gonna happen. So try and make peace with the fact that that is not something that you're doing wrong. It is just an experience that you're having, and it will dissipate. But self-sabotage is about letting go of familiar patterns, even if it's scary. We normally self-sabotage if we've got low self-worth, which comes out in a I don't deserve better. So if you're working that kind of messaging in your head, try to become aware of it so you can replace it with something better. Go back to the inner child work, which is the 5 ways to refocus your negative thoughts. We're afraid to outshine others with a fear of rejection. We're unaware of our subconscious fears and patterns, and they always overrule our conscious actions. So what's happening underneath is far more powerful at times than what we're actively doing. If it's not an active conscious thought and we're working on auto-programming, then our subconscious thoughts will just keep playing out. If you're not clear on your why for doing something, if you're not feeling aligned, then it's easy to self-sabotage, keep coming back to why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And activity is from your push rather than the feminine, the cosmic mother, the flow. And it's normal as you become aware of your behavior to self-sabotage. Just take your time and be kind to yourself. Release what doesn't serve you. Well, that's the whole reason we're doing this, is we're releasing what no longer serves us, but it is a messy process. Please don't think that this is supposed to be graceful. It's not supposed to be graceful. You're not going to have these whole experiences and come out the other side going, oh yeah, that was really well handled. Eventually you will, absolutely you will, and you'll feel really proud and really happy that you were able to manage the experience and feel strong and with healthy boundaries, and that you were the guardian of yourself and you felt powerful. That's good. You will get to that point. But it's not going to be perfect. The journey there is not perfect. So in the process, be kind and compassionate to yourself and keep coming back to that present moment awareness. What's going on right now? Don't worry about the future. Don't worry about the past. What's going on for me right now? And I mentioned this in the Inner Child Masterclass training, but it's worth repeating now again. Transformation, we want it to be clear from A to B. We want it to be straight. What it actually feels like is a messy, like Mr. Messy from the Mr. Men books. And it feels like that a lot of the time, but what it actually is a spiral. You feel like you're going round in circles, but each time you're getting closer and closer to the 0 point. You'll keep coming back, and you will start to notice some really profound and beautiful changes the more you keep doing and practicing this work. So for now, I want to leave you with this thought, that the biggest and most radical change is to set your intention to be kind, compassionate, and loving towards yourself. That is the greatest form of power that we can have and that we can give ourselves today. Thank you. So next steps, take what resonates, leave the rest. If it doesn't resonate with you, don't do anything with it. Maybe you'll come back to it in a month, 2 months, 3 months time, and it'll be ready for you then. That's okay. That's how it works. We integrate in layers. It takes time. So take the next month to go through the Illuminate July workbook, or longer. It's not a race. But if you would like to go deeper, or you get stuck on something, I do one-to-one sessions too. And that's specifically to help unblock something. So if you've got something and you feel like you can't find your way out of it, I can work with you to help unblock you and to work it through. Or if you've got a goal that you want to work on, then I can help you get to that point too. So thank you very much for your time this evening, and we're going to carry on and go through our Q&A.